When a woman breaks up with you, she isn't just leaving a relationship. She is following a script in her head where she predicts exactly how you will react, and she's practically banking on your emotional collapse to validate her decision. She expects the paragraph text, the 2 a.m. calls, and the desperate bargaining, because in her mind, your chaos is her closure. But when you flip that script, when you give her absolute dignified silence, you don't just surprise her, you trigger a psychological short circuit that creates a level of anxiety and attraction she never saw coming. Psychology calls this a pattern interrupt, and it forces her brain to enter a state of high alert processing that completely overrides her logic for leaving. It signals that your nervous system is far more robust and high value than she gave you credit for. So let's walk through the 5 specific emotional stages she will spiral through when you choose peace over panic, and why this is the only move that actually matters. The first stage hits her almost immediately, and it's total confusion. See, leading up to the breakup, she likely spent weeks or even months building a fortress of logic. She convinced herself, her friends, and her family that you were emotionally dependent on her. She cast you in the role of the desperate ex before she even said the words, "it's over." When you refuse to play that role, when you accept the breakup with a calm, "I understand," and then disappear, you shred her script. It's like she walked onto a stage to perform a dramatic play, but her co-star didn't show up.
She is left standing there with all this defensive energy she built up to fight you, but she has nowhere to direct it. This silence is deeply unsettling to the female brain because it creates a vacuum. She expected a storm and you gave her a void. But confusion alone isn't enough to change her mind, it just gets her attention. What happens next is what starts to crack her foundation. This leads us directly into stage 2, the forced reality check. When you are chasing her, your noise distracts her from her own feelings. Your begging creates an ego boost that shields her from the pain of the separation. But when you remove your noise, you remove her distraction. By moving on peacefully, you force her to sit in the deafening silence of her own choice. Suddenly, she doesn't have your crazy behavior to point at and say, "See?
That's why I left." She has to look at the relationship through a raw, unfiltered lens. For women with an anxious attachment style, this is terrifying because they feel the abandonment instantly. But even for avoidant women who think they want space, this stage is a trap. Why? Because the human brain is wired to solve problems. When you go silent, you become a puzzle she can't solve. She starts replaying memories not to justify leaving, but to find clues as to why you aren't fighting for her. However, just because she's thinking about you doesn't mean she wants you back yet. She might just think you're in shock. To move her from curiosity to actual reconsideration, she needs to see something in you that she thought was missing.
That brings us to stage 3, which is the most critical shift: unspoken respect. There is a fundamental truth in evolutionary psychology. A woman cannot love a man she does not respect. When you beg and plead, you are signaling that your survival depends on her validation. That is biologically repulsive. But when you walk away with your head high, focused on your purpose, you demonstrate what psychologists call a secure attachment style. Think of a captain on a ship during a hurricane. If the captain runs around screaming, "We're doomed," the crew panics and loses faith. But if the captain stands calmly at the helm, staring down the waves, the crew feels safe. By handling the breakup with peace, you become the captain of your own life. You are showing her that your self-worth is internal, not external. She sees you eating well, working out, and leveling up, not to impress her, but because you respect yourself. This creates a massive dissonance in her mind.
She thought she was leaving a sinking ship, but now she sees a man commanding a vessel she wants to be aboard. But respect is just the foundation. To get her to actually feel the loss, we have to leverage one of the most powerful laws of human nature. This triggers stage 4, the scarcity cascade. This is where the what-ifs take over. The scarcity principle states that humans attach higher value to things that are limited or unavailable. When you were begging, your value was 0 because your supply was infinite. You were easy. But the moment you withdrew your energy, your time, and your attention, you became scarce. She sees you moving on, maybe from mutual friends or just the lack of notifications on your phone. And she realizes she is no longer the main character in your story. You aren't the same man she left. You are a mystery.
And because you are growing, because you are genuinely improving, she starts to fear that she made a mistake. She starts to wonder, what if he becomes the man I always wanted, but for someone else? This regret is powerful, but it can still be temporary if she thinks you're faking it. That is why stage 5 is the final nail in the coffin of her logic, the Phoenix effect. This is where she feels renewed, genuine attraction. This happens when she realizes your peace isn't a tactic. It isn't a manipulation to get her back. It is real. She sees a man who has risen from the ashes of the relationship, stronger, more disciplined, and happier than he was with her. This triggers reactance, a psychological drive to regain freedom or lost options. She realizes that being in your life is no longer a chore she wanted to escape. It's a privilege she lost. She sees a man on a mission, and suddenly her biological drive to be with a capable, high-value partner overrides her logical reasons for the breakup.
But here is the twist, and you need to hear this. You cannot fake stage 5. If you're moving on peacefully just to manipulate her into coming back, she will smell the inauthenticity on you. It will fail. You have to actually choose yourself. You have to build a life so incredible and full of purpose that you genuinely do not care if she comes back or not. That is true power. You aren't broken, you're just rebuilding. Drop a shield emoji in the comments if you are choosing dignity over desperation today. And now that you've mastered the emotional mindset, you need to know exactly what practical steps to take in the first 30 days to ensure you don't relapse. So click this video right here to lock in that new version of yourself.